The last thing I want to cover when working with PHP and MySQL is how to run other queries besides select queries. So this particular example is really going to show you how to insert and update data within your database using PHP and MySQL. Really, you can do any query that you can write in your database management system. You can actually embed in a PHP page and have it run that query on the database. So you're not limited to anything that I'm showing you here. You're really limited to any query, no matter how complex. You can create it and run it from PHP against your database, and then either have it make changes on the database or have it retrieve data and show it on your page. So you can insert, you can delete, you can update. So assuming I have this checkout page right here, so it's got address information, it's got your billing information, and it's got your order information. So if someone filled out this page on your website, you would want to write it back to the database. And chances are you'd have two primary tables that you'd be writing. You'd have the primary order table, which would have the customer information in it, and perhaps the payment information. I'll show you how to write the payment information. Generally, you wouldn't want to write someone's credit card number to your database. You'd actually want to transmit that directly to the bank so that you're not storing credit card information in your database, because that provides is a really big security risk. But this is really just showing you the essentials on writing to the database. And then once you've written the order information, you're going to want to write each individual item that someone purchased to the database. So usually you'd use a separate table for this, an order details table, where each item they ordered is a separate line in the order details table, all tied to your order ID, which is the primary key in your order table. So this particular example actually uses 4 different queries. My first query is an insert into, where I'm inserting all of the data from this web page up above into my orders table. Once I've created my order, then I'm going to actually have to find my order ID. So I'm going to look up my order ID. So I'm going to get the most recent maximum order ID that someone gave based on the customer name. Then once I've gotten my order ID, I'm going to run this insert query multiple times, one for each item you ordered. So in this particular example, I have 2 items that someone purchased, so I'll write 2 different lines into the order details table, which will include the order ID, the product name, the size, the color, the price, and the number you bought. And finally, once I've inserted into my order details table all the items you ordered, I'm going to update my inventory table, and I'm actually going to reduce the quantity on hand by the number that you ordered. So if I had 75 on hand, you bought 2, I'm going to decrease my quantity on hand by 2 so that my order, now I'll have 73 items in my inventory table. You could actually do more on this, because you probably should check to make sure I didn't buy more than you had on hand and other things like that. So there's a lot of validation you could do, but the basics of running the queries is what's going to happen in this page. So this is the first top half of my page. I'm going to bring on my screen here. It's showing my first 2 queries. So I've got my basic page, I've got an insert statement, and in this insert statement I'm just having all of my posts that you have straight from the table, because I posted the checkout page to this page that's writing to the database. So I actually have the post CNAME, which is the customer name, the address, the city, the state. I'm putting them in single quotes inside my double quotes because these are strings, and so any string has to be written to the database inside quotes. So the same rules that apply to queries outside PHP will apply to queries in PHP. I can embed the posts right inside my overall string because my string is surrounded by double quotes, and you can put variables embedded directly within your string when the string is surrounded by double quotes. I tested this, and you actually don't want quotes around the individual variable names if you're embedding it inside the string. It threw an error. So really you just want without the quotes when you're embedding the post inside a string. So then I run this query. The one thing that's different about how am running this query right here on line 30 is I don't assign it to a variable. When I insert into a database, that does not return a value, so that I do not assign anything to a result set. Once I've run the query, I have a select. I'm going to select and get my maximum order ID. When I run that query, I am going to assign it to a record set because it does return a value. And then I'm going to fetch the associative array like we've done in the past, and then get the max value from my query, the thing with the name of max1, and assign it to the order ID. Once I have an order ID, then I can have a loop, and I'm going to loop essentially through all of the products that I have in my table. And essentially the way my shopping cart is written into the checkout page, field 0 is the product name, field 1 is the product, the size, 2 is color, 3 is price, 4 is quantity, but it'd be 0. So field 00 is the first product name, 10 is the first product size. Then field 01 is the second product name, field 11 is the second product size, etc. So I have this loop where I'm essentially looping through all of the products in my form, and I'm writing it into the order details table. Now, I didn't do this embedded thing inside the quotes. I actually started my quote, ended my quote, used the dot, because I just wasn't sure how this concatenated field with a variable in the middle of my post was going to work if I tried to embed it in a string, and I thought it'd be easier just to escape it and have that outside the string, so I made sure I got my value correctly. Once I insert into my order details table and I run that query, then I write another query where I'm going to update inventory, and I'm going to set the quantity on hand equal to the quantity on hand minus the quantity you ordered, which is this value. Then I'm going to update the inventory only where the item ID is equal to the item ID I purchased. Now, I was a little bit of a nutter, and instead of actually saving my item ID in my shopping cart, I actually have my item name in the shopping cart. So I actually need to look up what item ID goes with that item name. That's actually not the best way to do it. It'd be better to save things based on the item ID, but I didn't do that. So what I did is I actually have a fairly complex query here. So I have where item ID is in, and then I select the item ID from item where item name is like the item name. And then I also check to make sure the item size is correct and the item color is correct, because there's 3 different things that go with a unique product: the product name, the size, and the color that you're purchasing. So you just don't want to decrease all of the things with the same name, because you would be decreasing quantity on hand for different colors and different sizes. And then I run that particular query, and then I write out a form that will show the people that that they got an order. So it'll give them their order ID. It's going to write out a little table with the card in it, and it tells them that they're going to ship the order in 48 hours, and I have a link to return them to the home page. And so this is what the resulting page I write out looks like. What I'd probably also want to do is send them an email with their order details, but I'm not covering that in this particular lecture.